lifelike terror? Abject horror? And today I will be doing my wrap-up for the months of September and October. So in total for the month I read 8 books, lots of varying genres and everything else, so I think I will just go ahead and jump in to the first book I read in September, which was Hamnet. This was the pick for the Shelf This book club that I have been a part of for a few months now, and this month I actually picked the book for a book club, which is A Spy in the Struggle, which there will be a live show coming up. I think the live show is gonna be the day after this video gets posted. I think that's it, pretty sure. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. But anyways, Hamnet. Hamnet is what we're talking about right now. This is a historical fiction on the life of Shakespeare's family that he left in the English countryside while he lived in London writing his plays. It takes place during when he was alive, which apparently the plague was still a really big deal. I don't know, my European history is a little iffy, but it focuses mostly on the dynamics of his wife when she was younger, when they first met, and then kind of the later after he has left and gone to London and how the family kind of interacts with each other. It's a very kind of slice of life story, very slow. Nothing really happens, but it's a very interesting kind of medieval slice of life, I guess, if that's something that intrigues you. It wasn't necessarily my cup of tea, but I did enjoy it a lot more than I actually thought I would. The next book I actually listened to, and that was An Indigenous People's History of the United States. This is obviously not a light read. It's kind of depressing, but you know, as someone who lives in the US, I think it's really important that, you know, everybody from the US educates themselves on how our occupying this land has affected the people who were here before us. It's an important read, very depressing, very glad I read it. Excellently, really well written, has a really strong narrative through the whole thing, so it's really engaging. My favorite part of the book was actually, you know, the very first few chapters, which was pre-Columbian history, which obviously, yeah, this place seemed pretty dope before some Europeans came through and spread a bunch of disease. But to lighten up after that, I guess a bit of a palate cleanser, I read Tokyo Ever After. This is a super fun Princess Diaries-esque book. I guess a short little synopsis. A young woman from California discovers that she is the daughter of the Prince of Japan. She manages to reach out to the prince, and he invites her to come to Japan and kind of experience royal Japanese life. And she ends up falling in love with her bodyguard and kind of an enemies to lovers sort of situation. And obviously she's from, you know, just a small town in California and suddenly being hoisted up into this crazy world of royalty. So it's just really fun, really cute. You know, nothing ever feels like that high stakes. It's just fun. It's like watching the Princess Diaries. I don't know, I never read the Princess Diaries. I've heard those books are actually a lot more depressing than like the movies are, but this is much more similar to like the movies of the Princess Diaries than from what I understand from the book. The next book I read was The Cabinet of Curiosities by Preston and Child. This is the 3rd installment in the Pendergast series, which I have a full review of this book on my channel, but just a short little synopsis here. A very peculiar FBI agent teams up with an archaeologist from the New York Museum of Natural History. Together they solve a series of 100-year-old murders in order to uncover a modern-day copycat killer. Seeing as this is, you know, later on in a series that I already enjoy, I very much also enjoyed this one. I think it's even better than the first two, and I don't know how much more I can say about it besides what I said in my full review. I do have it split into non-spoiler and spoilers, so if you haven't read it and you want to hear a little bit more in-depth thoughts, you can check out that first part of that video. But I think for now, I will move on to my next book, which was MacBeth, the audio version. So I picked this up because after reading Hamnet, I thought, you know, maybe I would have a little bit more interest in Shakespeare. I was not a Shakespeare girl in high school, did not like any of the Shakespeare I was forced to read. And so I thought, you know, maybe I'd give him another chance. Maybe an audio version would help, you know, get a little bit more immersive into the style of what a play would really be like. And no, I had no idea what was going on for the full 2 hours of listening to this. I basically just had it on for like spooky sounds in the background during like the first part of October, and I couldn't keep any of the characters straight, and I just don't think I'm gonna be a Shakespeare girl unless I can watch it on an actual stage, maybe? I might enjoy an actual stage production of Shakespeare, but for now, I think I'm just gonna have to hang the towel and just accept that that's not me. The next book I listened to is actually a collection of 4 short stories, Strange Weather by Joe Hill. These stories all had varying levels of spookiness, from kind of goofy and absurd to like lifelike terror, abject horror. I enjoyed all of them, but I definitely had 2 standout favorites, and that is Rain. I can't remember the other one, but the one of lifelike abject horror. That was my other favorite one. But I mean, I guess horror is kind of a genre year-round. I only really like it during Spooktober, but if you are a horror fan and you haven't checked out these stories, I would definitely recommend it. I really, really enjoyed listening to them. The next book I read was Everyone Knows Your Mother is a Witch, a novel by Rivka Galchen. I received this in an indispensable box from Powell's Books, so I do have a little video on that if you want to check that out. It's a historical fiction. It takes place in the early 1600s, and it is about the trial of an accused witch. So it's kind of, it feels a little bit like a medieval John Grisham. It takes place mostly in the framing device of this accused widow relaying her story to her neighbor who can write. So this neighbor is basically writing out this memoir of her, and then also you get to see the interviews with the different accusers in the town. I guess not necessarily just accusers, but just the whole investigation. You get to see a couple of the interviews that they are conducting with the people in this village, and it kind of ends on the trial of this widow and her. You see a lot of like how her family's involved and what they're doing to try to help out. There's not a whole lot of plot here. Like I said, it's mostly just the explanation of the trial and all of these situations that she managed to get herself in that made her look suspicious, when in reality she's just an outgoing widow, which apparently that's not a thing. You shouldn't be outgoing and happy if your husband died. But you know, so I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it seemed really believable, all of these accusations that people are making about her. So I really enjoyed it. It is kind of, like I said, it's slow, not a lot happens, but I think it was definitely a cool, you know, October read, getting to kind of see into not just like Salem witch trials, but actually more like European-based witch trials, because this does take place in Germany, Austria area. This was good. I liked it. And the final book I read for October was The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. This book is having a moment right now. It was one of the Book of the Month picks, and I definitely see why Book of the Month, you know, picked it out, especially for October. It is a second chance romance. A young witch ends up accidentally hexing her ex-boyfriend after their breakup, and it causes all sorts of mayhem when he comes back to said town to try to recharge the ley lines. I don't know, I'm not a huge like supernatural reader, so I don't know like all the terminology of witchy stuff, but it's mostly a steamy romance, so you don't really need to know all the witchy things. It's mostly steam, and I like that. The only problem I did have with this book is, so the main guy is from Wales, and the town where the book takes place, where, you know, the main character and the main guy met, is in Georgia, which I just assumed meant the country of Georgia because, you know, Wales, witchy, old places like Georgia, Caucasus Mountains. Because they talk about it like being in like the mountains too, and like Georgia's like right along like the Caucasus Mountains. And so I was thinking Georgia the country, and it took me way too long to realize they were talking about Georgia, the state in America. Because they kept talking about how it was like a picturesque, you know, mountainy town with a college. I don't know. I was very confused, but that's probably just a me problem. I don't think most people are going to have that issue, but I had that issue. I guess to end on a positive note of me, you know, not being just bad at geography, but this is a dual perspective. We get to see from her side and his side, which I am quickly realizing is my favorite way to romance. I love seeing both perspectives of both leads. I think it makes it less frustrating for me. A lot of single perspectives, the girl will talk about like, oh, he just doesn't like me that much or whatever. I'm like, why are you bothering then? Just stop. If you don't think he likes you that much, just leave. Just go. Versus in this, you get to see like his perspective of like how much he's doing for her to help her out, and then you understand like, oh yeah, I can understand why she's still like hanging out with him because they have like such great chemistry together, because you get to see both sides. And oh my goodness, my camera's gonna die. Okay, but yes, this was the last book I read. It was very cool. I enjoyed it a lot. I had a pretty decent couple of reading months. I didn't get a whole lot read, but I did enjoy pretty much everything I read. Everything I read was either really well written or just right up my alley of stuff I like. So if you have read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts down below. And thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.